Ok, la lumière en ville est très pratique pour éviter que la vie s'arrête à la tombée du jour. Mais ce qu'on sait moins, c'est que c'est aussi un outil politique, une cause de maladie, un objet artistique et un fléau pour l'environnement. Bon, bien sûr, c'est pas pour ça qu'il ne faut plus éclairer la ville. Ce serait pas très pratique et on se priverait aussi de toutes les fonctions de la lumière qu'on soupçonne pas forcément. Déjà, la lumière modifie totalement notre perception de la nuit. Quand l'éclairage public arrive en Europe, au XVIIe siècle, le siècle des Lumières, la nuit urbaine, qui était jusqu'alors terrifiante, change de visage pour devenir plus rassurante. Avec l'éclairage au gaz et à l'électricité ensuite, la nuit devient un temps de plaisir animé par les opéras, bars et théâtres. À tel point qu'on doit même renforcer la base des lampadaires qui cassaient sous le poids des ivrognes. Et la lumière donne encore une autre fonction à la nuit urbaine quand New York crée une forme de communication totalement inédite, la publicité lumineuse. La nuit, désormais, devient colonisée par le marketing et la société de consommation. Mais restons dans la poésie et évoquons la dimension esthétique de la lumière. On l'oublie souvent car on a hérité du modèle d'éclairage des années 90, purement fonctionnel, consistant à éclairer les routes de manière homogène. Mais aujourd'hui, on cherche à sortir de ce modèle et on a même créé pour ça le métier de concepteur lumière. Leur but est d'imaginer des paysages nocturnes adaptés à chaque lieu et de créer de nouvelles manières de voir la ville. Des agences comme Concepto, BOA ou Lumières mettent en lumière l'architecture et créent de nouvelles expériences de la nuit. Ça fait envie, non? Soyez pas pompier ou trader, soyez concepteur lumière. D'ailleurs, je pense que vous serez bien payé, car la lumière, c'est aussi ce qui rend une ville attractive. C'était le cas quand Paris était la ville lumière, et c'est le cas aujourd'hui avec l'éclairage du zoo de Chicago ou la fête des Lumières à Lyon, qui attire des millions de visiteurs chaque année et fait partie de l'identité de la ville. La lumière en ville est en fait un outil parfait pour le marketing urbain. L'usage de techniques de pub et de communication pour mettre en valeur non pas un aspirateur antiparticules permettant aux femmes de s'émanciper, mais une ville. Et c'est là qu'on voit que la lumière urbaine n'est pas neutre. Choisir quelle zone on éclaire, c'est choisir ce qu'on veut montrer ou cacher de la ville. Bref, la lumière urbaine est un outil politique très puissant. Par exemple, à Bordeaux, début 2000, l'éclairage public se concentrait sur le centre-ville, que la mairie voulait revaloriser dans le cadre d'une politique urbaine de grande ampleur, mais les espaces moins centraux, mais très fréquentés par les travailleurs de nuit, étaient, eux, moins bien éclairés. Éclairer la ville est donc une question politique, sociale, écologique et artistique. Et c'est pour ça qu'on parle aujourd'hui d'un urbanisme lumière, une manière d'aménager la ville nocturne grâce à la lumière pour répondre à des enjeux urbains comme la sécurité, l'inclusion sociale ou le respect de l'environnement. Et des idées lumineuses pour mieux éclairer la ville, on n'en manque pas. Déjà, on peut limiter la pollution lumineuse en installant des éclairages à LED qui durent plus longtemps, consomment moins et dont la lumière peut facilement être orientée vers le sol et moins vers le ciel. Par exemple, à Chicago, seul un tiers de la lumière des anciens luminaires éclairait la rue et le trottoir. La ville a donc remplacé ses lampes par des LED dans le cadre du Smart Lighting Program. Le Smart Lighting, c'est aussi un concept qui regroupe des technologies comme les éclairages dynamiques qui n'éclairent à 100% que s'ils détectent un piéton ou une voiture. Et on veut aussi limiter les excès de lumière à l'échelle de villes entières en mettant en place des trames noires. Un ensemble de zones peu ou pas éclairées où plantes et animaux peuvent vivre en paix. Mais le but n'est pas que la ville soit fréquentée par les hérissons, mais plus du tout par les habitants qui craignent l'insécurité. Alors, pour répondre aux besoins des citadins, on mise sur l'éclairage participatif. À Strasbourg, on parle éclairage public lors des assemblées de quartier, entre le vin chaud et les bretzels, ce qui permet à la mairie d'éclairer les quartiers en tenant compte des témoignages des habitants. Et puis, la lumière a aussi le pouvoir de créer une ville plus égalitaire. Grâce à un plan lumière, la ville du Havre a transformé le quartier défavorisé de Cocrioville. Les lumières des rues ont désenclavé le quartier en le rendant plus safe, donc plus fréquenté, et l'éclairage a renouvelé la perception des tours, jusqu'alors peu appréciée. Bref, tous ces enjeux nous invitent à penser la nuit comme un espace-temps particulier, qu'on peut préserver, façonner et réinventer grâce à la lumière, et lors duquel on peut tester de nouveaux modes de fabrique de la ville.
Bienvenue and welcome to the Alliance Française de Chicago, the place for all things French in Chicago. We'd like to give a special welcome to our marathon runners who have come from France, to the students of the University of Illinois at Chicago, and to all of you. Tonight we launch our Les Lumières, an urban buffet, a Chicago Architectural Biennial partner program. We're very proud to have been a partner with this group for a number of years, so it's very special to continue our partnership. This program tonight would not have been possible without the Jean Bodfish Brown Memorial Fund and the support of the Cultural Services of the French Embassy in the United States, as well as special thank you to the Sofitel Magnificent Mile. To tell you more about tonight's program, please welcome the cultural attaché and her deputy in Chicago, Axel Muller and Nicolas Douet.
Thank you, David, for the introduction. We are delighted to be here tonight at the Alliance Française de Chicago, which is our strongest and most historical partner. So thank you, Marie-Hélène, Aimé, Geneviève, Raphaël, Alexandra, and all of your team. It's always a great pleasure to work with you. We also want to thank BOA Light Studio and Philippe Stanfield Pinel for making this wonderful project possible. So you will soon see the amazing light installation on the roof. So thank you, Philippe, for putting us on the spotlight. On the academic side, thank you, Odile and the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and also Teresa and the Great Cities Institute from the University of Illinois in Chicago. Thank you also to the generous support of CLECO for this series of events, City Cité. And last but not least, we'd like to thank Marie Douniac, former intern at the Cultural Services in Chicago, who conceived and created this amazing introductive video to set the main issues related to the light in the cities. Tonight, it's also a very special night because this is our first public event of the French participation in the Chicago Architecture Biennial. So we will have the pleasure to meet again with another exhibition and conferences of Thomas Coldefi in November, and a last one in December with Christophe Hutin. His film Les Communautés à l'œuvre is being presented at the Graham Foundation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to add that in 2022, we'll have even more opportunities to talk about architecture, urban planning, and landscape, with the launch on October 21st of a new institution of the Cultural Services of the French Embassy. This new institution is called Villa Albertine. It's a vast residency program which will host each year all across the country more than 70 artists, researchers and creators from France and around the globe, with the same ambition of promoting the dialogue between our two countries. In Chicago and the Midwest, we will welcome a dozen of them. Among them, several architects and city makers. We will examine the city, which is such an important issue of our time. And now let's get back to our evening. I have the pleasure to leave the floor to Aimé Laberge, the Director of Programs of the Alliance Française de Chicago, who successfully led the organization of such a beautiful adventure.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Axel. Thank you, Nicolas. You were all part of this adventure, of course. I want to say that it's not every day that we have the opportunity to build art, and to build art that is billboard size, that art that is on a roof. This is very difficult to access, which I had the pleasure to access quite a few times this week. And to build art out of Lumières, which is really the theme of our season and the theme of tonight. Just before we get started, as I say, please keep your cell phone off. If you need to leave the auditorium, please do so by the back door. Keep your mask on if you can. It is safer for you and it's safer for the others. The format of the evening, we will first welcome Philippe, and he will present about BOA Light Studio and Urban Buffet. We'll explain to you how this landed on our roof. Then we will have a panel, a short panel of experts who will talk about art, architecture, and light. This will be followed by a Q&A, a little surprise, And then, of course, we will head out, like for all French evening, to have a bit of wine and cheese. Philippe, just a few words about him. He's very shy, so. Philippe is an architect, first and foremost, with a focus and an interest in enhancing urban spaces. He has worked for firms such as Venturi Scott Brown and XTU, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, and has researched urban art, town planning, and architecture around the world. His interest of art outside gallery spaces and its relationship with public space has led Philippe to join Lighting. He travels now on behalf of BOA around the globe in order to develop new projects to highlight different types of spaces for cities, institutions, or private clients. Please welcome Philippe.
Amazing introduction. Thank you, Aimé. So, yeah, we're turning off. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to have a little. Oh, here you go. Yeah, a little clicker. I'm gonna take my mask off. It'll feel good. Oof, it's nice. The privilege of speaking. Yes, so my name is Philippe. I work with BOA. I wanted to, first of all, thank you to l'Alliance Française, to the cultural services of the French Embassy for this adventure. Thanks to you, this would have, it would never happen if you weren't here and, and you weren't confident in our work. And so, no, it was a real pleasure working with you. So we decided working this year on this thématique des Lumières for the Chicago Architecture Biennial. And before showing you the project, I'm going to kind of run around our universe of what lighting is and how we work with light and how we actually conceive light and in different scales. It can be in the living room by just doing a light fixture to an installation on the roof of an Alliance Française or a public space, an airport, buildings, any kind of size basically. Light is universal. It's, once you just do a little fixture, you can do giant spaces. So basically, here we are. You have the sun during the day, which is kind of like, everything is under the dictatorship of the sun. You can't hide anything. You can't do it. It's just the way it is, basically. What you see is what you get, basically. But at night, it's dark, and you can kind of just play with the darkness, and you can sculpt the darkness. So basically, with the material, the light material, you have billions of colors, billions of different outputs with the LED technology now, and you can, with all these possibilities, do kind of what you want and transform the building the way you want, the building or the park or whatever you're working on. So you can see the difference of the character. So here you have kind of a beacon on top, a blue beacon. So when you're far from it in the city, it kind of creates this point de repère, because I'm going to do some franglais tonight. It's easier. So it's more of a levitating building. You also, for interior spaces, so with light, you can kind of reveal what you want to reveal in a more elegant way than just throwing light everywhere. You can just give some shades of gray and light, but you can also totally change the space by projecting different things on the walls and different colors and different intensities, and so you definitely change the spirit of the space, basically. So this is a project that we're doing in New York right now that's going to open next year. Voilà. Here, this is in Paris on the Champs-Élysées. With light also, so in the video before she was talking, actually the video before was pretty well done. I'm pretty amazed. I don't know, it's like very good work. And so yes, light, it's when we call this, basically it's majorly for marketing reasons. So this is the Galerie Lafayette on the Champs-Élysées. They opened a boutique over there, a big boutique. And there's no vitrine. So they don't have any vitrine going onto the street, and the only thing that signals its presence is just the entrance. So they wanted something really that would mark the entrance, and so we did this giant kind of disco tunnel basically, and that brings you into the grand space here, where we also designed the light fixtures in here, which are kind of Art Deco inspired. Here it's on the Champs-Élysées also. It's a future project that's going to open in 2 years from now. Same thing, we kind of we didn't really want to light the building itself. We wanted to give another story to it. It's these crystal fixtures which are on the side of the building, which actually follow the column-like architecture, and so it has this movement at night. And here we have, we wanted to create, it's a piazza, a public piazza. It's a new building which covers this piazza. It's a bridge building, and this piazza brings onto a bridge, which brings onto a new district of Paris. And to invite people to go on this bridge, we kind of created this magical kind of voûte arch over this piazza with the light. Instead of just lighting the ground with the normal light, we would light it with these kind of these LED lights, basically, which this is the headquarters for Le Monde, which is a famous major French newspaper. And since it covers basically the whole world and it's news from all over the world, we captured different lights and different skies from all over the world, and we retransmit it into this LED canopy, which is over so it changes, and it has different types of lights from the world, and you can see the clouds kind of hovering above this piazza. Voilà. Well, this is just to show that she was the girl was talking about the fact that light isn't very good for the nature, and she's right. It's not, we're killing ants and we're killing birds and all that by lighting up at night too late. So basically, when we're in nature, we try to keep it as subtle as possible. Keep it just keep the sky as bright as possible by not lighting too much where people walk and all that. Same thing here. This is in Marrakesh. It's the Place Jama El Fna, which is a heritage site, World Heritage Site. Right now, the problem is that they're putting lights all over the place, and it's just kind of chaotic, and there's no actual main line. It's just everyone's doing what they want with light. And so they asked us to intervene and create a light scheme. So we're just lighting the buildings, and in the center we want to keep it as dark as possible, so that people's imagination have more space. When you don't really see anything, you kind of just guess what you're seeing, and guessing is the imagination after that works. And there's a lot of conteurs, a lot of people that tell stories on this place, and a lot of food things. And so we're just lighting through these little umbrellas here that have this special warm light, so people can gather around the light, and then same thing here. Keep it as dark as possible. This is the Villa Medici in Rome. It's in the center of Rome, and it's actually the only place in Rome where you can actually see the sky. You can really see the sky from when you're in the garden in the back, because there's absolutely no light at all. It's fantastic. And you actually need a flashlight to go through the gardens at night. And so we didn't want to ruin that, and they asked us to light up the facade in the back towards the gardens, and to keep that darkness, we just really subtly just lit up the alcoves to represent all the statues that the Medicis took before Napoleon arrived. They didn't want Napoleon to have the statues. So we highlighted that. Voilà, this is part of the garden. We're not lighting up the garden. We're just creating this kind of magical feel with a kind of firefly effect. Here it's an allegory to the sky. People are looking up in the sky. There's this glass atrium above, but we added some LEDs on it, and we created all these kind of different skies which are fake skies when you look, but you can see the real sky in the back also at the same time. So it's kind of like a double sky, basically. Well, I'm just going to go quicker because I don't think I have a lot of time. So, voilà, this is something that we just finished in Dubai for the World Expo. Well, just lights, you know, lighting. This is also, there's another story for this. This is a university for women in Saudi Arabia for literature and language. And so basically it's this cascade. It's kind of like a waterfall of letters that kind of go from the top to the bottom and then go into this little tunnel here. And so, yeah, you have this little tunnel here, and then the tunnel, it goes down into the tunnel. It goes very slowly. We don't want anything violent or anything happening. So this is under construction, actually, so can't wait to have the pictures of this. And this is in Denver. Voilà. Just in case you went to the airport, it's the new terminal. There's a escalator, and in the escalator there's this giant screen where we project water in all of its states. Since Colorado, there's mountains, so in one day the water can be frozen, and then it can be gas because it can get really cold and really hot in the same day in Colorado. So we kind of represented that. Oh, there's a movie, a little film here. There you go. A surprise for me too. Voilà. Voilà, bon, this is allegories taking the sky into a cloister which is actually, it's not a cloister, sorry, it's an abbaye in Fontevraud in France. And so we brought the celestial down onto the earth, onto this rooftop where we replaced some of the tiles with these LED lights, basically with this solar panel. You can't see it. It's very well integrated and all that. And voilà. So that's the way to kind of transform from day to where you have this totally different feeling to night, and you kind of just have a wander where this is more of an educational project for the abbaye, showing that it was also a prison after, and so we wanted to show the different layers of the prison beds, of the bunk beds also at the time. And so, yeah, with light, you can also create this immersive educational experience. And I'm going to finish with Chicago because we actually did this was like 5 years ago, I think. There was a competition for, we were in the 3 finalists to do this kind of crazy big thing in Chicago. So there was this landscape project, and there were 2 lighting projects. It was a landscape project that won, and it's on the bank side of the river. They did that landscape project. I forgot the name of the project, but it's there. I saw it, and yeah. So we wanted to kind of create this. Like a feeling like when you're in a cavern and there's a sun that reflects into the water, and then it reflects onto the cave's sides, and so we wanted to kind of give this feeling like you were in a cave with the sunlight kind of reflecting on the upper side of the cave here. Same here, kind of just create this white light on the bridges here, and then take 3 of the most iconic towers in Chicago, take the rippling from the water and the sun effect from the ripples, and put it back onto the top of the 3 major towers of Chicago. So it kind of creates this unity between the 3 different towers. And that's it. I think I'm on time. Oh no, sorry, I forgot to present the projects. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I only have a minute, I guess, for that. Yeah. So basically, the project it all came through like Les Lumières. We were like, okay, so what are we gonna do with Les Lumières? So with Les Lumières at the time, it was kind of like it was le siècle de lumière, le siècle de enlightenment of making people, prendre conscience and knowledge and things like that. And so we're like, so how? And we mixed that with available spaces, which is the Chicago Architectural Biennale's theme this year. And we're like, okay, so there's this available space on top of this Alliance Française right here. There's a giant billboard on the right. There's all these billboards in the city which are kind of run down, and not only in Chicago, like everywhere in the world, because of like social media, which is taking over, communication and all that. So there's less and less billboards, and so there's all these spaces which used to be billboards which aren't used anymore. And we were thinking, oh, well, maybe it's interesting to show people that we can actually use these spaces to show art, not communicate on anything that's commercial or anything, but you can actually create an open air city, a museum, an open air museum in the city. And voilà. So this is kind of maybe like the prototype of this idea, is creating a billboard which is actually a piece of art. So people, it kind of changes the district, and it changes the way that people see the district, and then they can appropriate it and then show it to their family and take pictures, and it changes the face of the district. So this is so these are like examples of rundown billboards and billboards that aren't used anymore and all that. And this is what we did. Well, so, and then you'll see it later, and that's it.
Okay, now we will welcome our panel, please. Ouais, t'es là avec Philippe. Entre ça.
Super, Philippe.
Ah, merci, c'est gentil.
Ouais, vachement bien.
Merci.
Attends, je suis pressée d'aller voir.
Ah oui. Alors du coup, c'est hyper haut pour nous. Même pour moi, c'est haut.
So I'm very happy to moderate this panel as part of the first talk of our 2021 series City Cité, organized during the Chicago Architecture Biennial by the Cultural Services of the French Embassy, and also the Great Cities Institute from University of Illinois, thank you, and the Alliance Française de Chicago. So during the next 40 minutes, we will have the pleasure to talk on lights and cities with a wonderful panel, transatlantic panel. So I'm very delighted to welcome the French-American architect Odile Compagnon. So Odile, you worked with Jenny Gang, and you are now teaching at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and you have a long experience of collaboration with the Alliance Française, and specifically with the Biennial of Architecture. Also, of course, we have another famous French and American architect, so Philippe Stenfield-Pinel from BOA Light Studio, so who made this wonderful project. And one more architect, so not French-American, but Colombian and American, so Juan Gabriel Moreno, who has his own firm based in Chicago, but you also practice the architecture in the Global South, so we'll be delighted to hear from this perspective. And also the last one is Teresa Cordova. She's not architect, you're urban planner like me, so I'm very also happy to see you here, and you are the director of the Great Cities Institute from UIC. And so let's start with Odile maybe. So Odile, can you tell us more about the first participation of the Alliance Française at the Biennial? And then maybe we'll be happy to learn, to know your feeling about this actual project. And last, maybe to listen about your perspective between France and the US in terms of lights and city making. Thank you, Odile.
So I'm going to take this off too. Yes, thanks a lot for inviting me to be here tonight. I'm very honored to be here for this third participation of the Alliance Française to the Chicago Architecture Biennial. I will talk about the first two participations, which were not nearly as ambitious as this one, but I think they were good precursors to to what we're going to see after this when we go out and check the installation. But before I show you the projects that I worked on with the Alliance Française and with my SAIC students, I just want to show a little bit about how I got to doing this kind of architecture. So I'm trained as an architect, and I've had my own architecture firm in Paris for many years. But when I came to Chicago, I was very interested in continuing the public work that I was doing in France. And for me, the best way to do that was to work with theater companies and artists, and my working at teaching at the School of the Art Institute allowed that. So I really got started here in Chicago working with Jeannie Gang, but then I also worked with Red Moon Theater, and this is a project that I worked on with them, and I chose this one because it's also about light, this one being a giant zoetrope with which we built 3D pieces inside. Next one. And I've also taught, I'm teaching scenography at the School of the Art Institute, but I've also taught lighting, and this was a project that we did for a little park that's next to the Harold Washington College, and this unfortunately was not built, but if you go to the next one, we built a prototype of what was planned at the Chicago Garden Show. Next. And I also work now with a group called the Good City Group, and there's going to be another lecture with my friend Tracy, who's here, talking about what the Good City Group is doing, but it's basically designing interventions and installations that make people more aware of the public spaces that they use sometimes without even thinking about it. Next. And so this kind of, I guess maybe that's why Aimé thought it would be interesting to work with me and my students on the two previous biennial projects. So this one was in 2017, and Aimé and I gave the students, my students, a prompt. This one was based on a text by Victor Hugo, and they had to think about what the meaning of superfluous was and how to work with the most necessary pieces to express themselves. And then we put together a jury and we selected one of my students' projects, and we worked on developing it during the summer so that it could be ready for the opening of the biennial. And I chose this picture because making this hole in the wall was a very big feat. So I admire your being so bold as to put something on the roof, because just creating this hole, Aimé can attest to that, was a big thing. Unfortunately, the hole has been put, we kept the piece of a cinder block so that it could be closed if wanted, and unfortunately, they decided later on that it was better not to see inside the courtyard. But the idea with this student called his project Clairvoyance, because he thought that he could express his idea of transparency through these materials that reveal certain things, but not everything. And so if we go to the next picture, he created along the alley a series of screens that allowed you, that kind of hidden the written words that Alliance Française had chosen to stencil on the walls, but if you pressed the plastic against the brick, then you could read it. So it was his kind of idea of expressing the minimal movement to make you understand something. And then we also grew moss along the whole alley, which was a pretty amazing thing to do throughout the summer. And then the next two slides are about the 2019 CAB, Chicago Architecture Biennial project. And for that one, we had chosen to have the students work on the idea of the Alliance Française being a special haven. We worked with texts from Glissant and Sixou about, and we called the project Echo. So how can the Alliance Française be an echo of what it means to, what French culture means across the world, and create a multicultural haven. So this project was the one that was selected and then developed during the following summer. And the student was really interested in the history of hôtel particulier in France, and how you can sometimes open a closet or something that's like a hidden door and find another room and secret passages. So the idea that she developed was to wallpaper all of the closets in the salon, which you can still see, because after 2 years all of the wallpaper is still there. And then she designed furniture that we then built with a couple other students to kind of express this alternative world that lives within the closets. So with this, I know that you wanted me to also address certain questions about the difference between France and the United States. And I think that I just come back from 2 months in France, and I do think that you know, I do think that in France people dare more than they do here. I don't know if that's you kind of, but in general, people are less inclined to do daring things. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity to see your work, because I think this is really daring, and I can't imagine now what Alliance Française is going to do when they're going to tackle the next biennial in 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Odile. Maybe, Philippe, you can give us short comments or feelings about what just Odile just said.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that the garden exhibition that you did with the lighting, beautiful. It's really nice. And then I'm guessing that Alliance Française in 2 years they'll do something very easy after what they did this time, because this was a lot of work. Even though it was fun, and we all had fun, there was no issues. But no, I think that Odile, in a way, I think that when you say that in France we're more daring, I think that in France there's this culture of second guessing everything. More than in the States. Like when you're in the States, people are you know, there's kind of rules, and then you're going to stick to it, and then you know, it's like the Protestant way of doing things, and you know, it's very strict here. And but there are daring people here. You know, it's multicultural and all that, of course. But in France, it is something I think like in everyone's blood, where you know, like in America, it's like, you know, why not? And in France, it's just why, you know. And so and I think that's where we are more daring, because we kind of just we transgress these you know, just these like ideas and things that are set in place. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Philippe. So maybe we can move to Juan. So can you share with us your feelings about this project here at the Alliance Française, and also your own practice experience on the lights and cities? And also we would be very curious to hear about your practice in the Global South. Yeah, and maybe also to talk about the relationship between or the technology and the artistic perspective in cities.
Good evening, everyone. It's okay with you. I'm just going to stay seated because it just feels more like a conversation than a presentation. So, as mentioned, I was born in Colombia, and it's interesting to see even some of the conversation leading up to the work that you've done, because in particular, Medellin, where my father is from and most of my family is at, we went through a dark period. And a dark period so much that people are afraid to go out at night. And to see family live through that, it's beyond awful. But then, thinking about the available space and the way you describe that, the river of Medellin has become the public gathering place for light. And every December, because for Colombians, we don't say Christmas, we say the Festival of December, because we just celebrate the whole month. It's just an excuse to stretch it out. And if you know anything about my culture, we do that proudly. But Los Alumbrados is a festival of light throughout the river of Medellin, where families gather. And so now it's become this great connective tissue for people to come out at night, the antithesis of everything that they went through. So it's really beautiful to hear you talk about that in terms of the available city, because that river has been available to my people, but they wouldn't use it. So I think it's really wonderful to hear that. For me, that has impacted my work, and certainly the way I think about architecture, particularly in communities of need. I'm sharing 2 projects with you, just how light plays a role in it, metaphorically sometimes, but the significant impact that it can have. So the first project is called the Clio Arts Residences. It's in Washington Park. It's a neighborhood. It's Chicago, predominantly African American. This is affordable housing, and so we went through a scenario where it's affordable housing for artists, and I was given the chance to meet with the artists, which people were curious, why do I want to meet with the artists? Because I'm not designing a building for me. And it was fascinating to me to hear them talk about what they go through in social housing, and they would point to a little window on the wall and say, why is that all they give me of Mother Nature? Well, you know why. There's a perception that glass is expensive in affordable housing. With that came this kind of idea of, well, what if we play with the idea of what glass window is versus illuminance? And we chose to do the entire facade in polycarbonate. You still have a minimal window, but the idea there's illuminance in the spaces that, especially for the artists, it's the quality of diffused light. And I'm looking at you like you don't know this, but it's more like affirmation, I think. But then if you go to the next slide, so this is night. And this is where my personal and professional life have crossed. So night has been scary in Washington Park. And but it's also really interesting because artists tend to work at night. So in essence, the building is backlit all night long. And the community has called it, and you use this word, Philippe, a beacon. The community's called it their beacon. So it's been really interesting to see how light has played a role in how community feels about a building, how community feels about living in a place. Interestingly, just aspects of this, little anecdotes, when there's roughly 60 units, applications from all over Chicago came to live here, over 1,000, which is, one, sad because we know we need more affordable housing, but at the same time, these were people applying from the north side of the city that are usually not interested in living in the south side. So I think light also has this beautiful connective tissue that it's an opportunity that I don't think we explore enough certainly in the built world. So that's the Clio Art Residences. And then the next one So I have the great pleasure of working on a middle school in a suburb in the north side of our state called North Chicago. It's a city, and I know most of you know it, but it's a city that has gone through a lot of difficult times. It's 50% Latino, 50% African American. It's in the North Shore, so these kids see the $100 million schools built around them, and they think nobody cares about them. In this particular case, the company AbbVie gave $40 million to this school to build a middle school. We're grateful to have been selected for it, but this journey of what led to the design has been about as special of a story that I've encountered as an architect. We had the opportunity to meet with the students, we met with the families, and in those conversations, there's multi-generations that have lived in that area. And it was fascinating to me to hear from one of the 6-year-olds, because I think we all underestimate what they really know and feel. But to have a 6-year-old tell me quite passionately, Juan, I'm sick and tired of being invisible. I want to see and I want to be seen. That stuck with our entire team. So we began to explore that, like what does that mean? How can that manifest itself in ideas? There's plenty of land. Land's not an issue. It's a suburb. You know, and most schools in the suburbs are 1, maybe 2 stories and spread out. In this one, we intentionally said, you know what? It's going to be vertical. It's going to be intentionally a 5-story building. The first 2 floors are going to be the gathering spaces, because it's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The gathering spaces for all those grades. But the 3rd floor is for the 6th graders. 4th floor for the 7th. 5th is for the 8th graders, a rite of passage. And then with each year, you see more. You see more of your community, and you're seen more. So the next slide just shows you kind of the evening image. Happy to say the project's under construction now. It'll be opening in a year from now. But it's one where, you know, and I continue to go up there and meet with the youth, because it just, I don't know, it gives you this beautiful energy, right? But they say to me now, because the images are being published and they're out there, it's great that the neighboring school districts are coming here to see this as an example. So I think that's just another kind of tangible example of how light and visibility, illuminance, has such a powerful role in the built environment. So those are the 2 I want to share. And then just congratulations on your work. You know, I happen to be on the board of the Chicago Architectural Biennial, so I think the work that you've done is wonderful as a complement to the entire celebration of architecture. But I think for me, you know, it's interesting, like when you walk around our city, most people look down. Like there's such a lack of just connection with the eyes. But even walking up here, there's something about your work that allows us to start looking up. And I think there's an opportunity there for connectivity too, in an interesting way. And that's just my take on like how I felt about seeing it. So just congratulations. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Juan. Maybe Odile and Philippe, you would like to comment this before we open the question time? Or not? Up to you.
I really liked how you were presenting the idea of the transparency and the visibility. I think that it's really great, and to tie that into architecture and I'm really in awe of this kind of concept. It kind of resonates also a little bit with the things we did with the students here about this clairvoyance kind of project that we did first at the biennial. So I feel like it's really important for architecture to to be able to give those messages of light, but almost like spiritual light, which I think is also why Alliance Française called the program the Lumières. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. You're really giving them a tool for them. You know, they have something to be proud of. You know, and just by being proud of something, it gives them an extra force, an extra energy. You know, and that's beautiful. So congratulations.
So let's open the question time from the public. Any questions or comments? Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Well, so basically, the story of this pavilion is that the architects, what happened, it was like 3 years ago. It was a competition with architects that were like 3 architects that were like competing to win this like pavilion. And what happened is that the architects called us like 10 days before they were going to give in the competition. They're like, oh my gosh, we did this building, but it's like really dull and we don't really know what to do with it. And we need something on the facade, you know. So we just, you know, drew something really quickly, not knowing that we were going to win because we thought we were going to lose. And then they won it. And yeah, so that's what happened. Basically, what happens is that it's a giant canopy basically, and it covers the waiting line, because so people go in this building to see this exhibition about France and what France has to offer to the world and all that. And so normally that lines can go up to 2 hours. And so with this, there was a very little budget for lighting in this project. And so instead of just doing a screen by showing actual content, which would have costed a fortune, we just created a sensation. We wanted to kind of give life to the skin of this building, like if, you know, like tingling sensation on the skin of this building, and a breeze to it. And so like people just, you know, they're kind of surrounded by this ever-changing building skin, and nothing, you know, everything's very abstract and all that. So it's more about creating a feeling than showing content. And that's all I have to say about it.
Do we have any other comments or questions, feelings?
Don't be shy.
How
long did it take for you to do
this? We started, wait, when did we meet? It was, a year ago? No.
I think a year ago, November.
Yeah, a year ago we started talking, and then we got along and we laughed a lot and all that, and it was great. And then we're like, okay, let's do this together. And no, it was, you know, it's nice to work with fun people. So, and yeah, and to construct this, it took like 3 days, 4 days, but there was a lot of issues. But like it was a bit of a, you know, someone broke her knee, and then I broke my back before I came here. I was supposed to install it, but I broke my back like 2 weeks ago, so I couldn't do it. And then someone couldn't come here to the States because he was French, and, you know, French people can't come. And I know. So Émile Laberge was like, and everyone, but like Émile Laberge became like the most amazing project manager, you know, in the world for just like these 2 days. And she managed to put it up. I don't know how she did it, but, you know, I mean, because like, you know.
Yeah.
Where is the Le Monde building in Paris?
So, you know, how well you know Paris? The Gare d'Austerlitz. Do you know Gare d'Austerlitz in the 13th? So yeah, it's right. It's like above it. They did a whole district above the Gare d'Austerlitz, and it's like the first building right next to the Gare d'Austerlitz, basically. And they're covering all the rail tracks of the Gare d'Austerlitz, and they're gonna create a new district on part of La Pitié-Salpêtrière, which is on the other side. It's like a really big transformation in this district.
Isn't that where Jeannie Gang's new University of
Oh yeah, so that's a bit further down. Yeah, yeah. It's like a 10-minute walk down. 10-minute walk down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, but you're right. Yeah, yeah, you're definitely right. That's where it is. Yeah, yeah.
I think we have another question on the back. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that presentation, all of you. You elegantly showed, beg my master as I can project, I'm sorry. You elegantly showed your respect for the environment in terms of the effect that lighting has on the environment. Do you go further ever in thinking about the cost of the lighting in terms of the environmental cost of producing the light? How does that influence your thought process?
Yeah, that's a pretty easy answer actually, because the LED, the LEDs now, it's really like the consumption of LEDs is nothing. Like really, it's so we did this tower in Barcelona basically, where I don't know if you know the Agbar Tower in Barcelona. It's this tower that's blue and red at night, for those who know. And so it's like a really big tower, and it's all lit up, and basically it's all with LED lights. And it's the same consumption as if there were like 2 vacuum cleaners that were like on, basically. So I mean, LED light is so yeah, but it's hard to communicate about it because like people see light and they think, oh yeah, you're over consuming electricity and all that. But no, not with LED lights. It's fine. No, the real issue with light is not the energy. It's more so the birds and things like that. The circadian rhythm and in Chicago, there's a real problem with the towers. I'm not supposed to say this because I would love to light a tower here in Chicago, but if anyone likes to light a tower in Chicago, I'm here. But they still do it actually. So that's where it's weird because there's all these articles about how lighting the towers in Chicago actually really kills a lot of birds because it totally makes their brain dysfunction when the migrational birds that go down. Like I don't know, there's something that goes wrong with the lights in the towers in Chicago, and oh, they turned them off now. Okay.
Migratory season.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So, thank God. Yeah, they probably bump into the buildings. Yeah.
Yeah. You had a question?
Yeah.
Huh?
So the question was, outside of Medellin, in Bogota, are there projects that are doing similar or having similar impact? One of the great things about that project, Alumbrados, it's made its way to the other cities. So it's being run by the national, let's call it, energy company. They sponsor all of it. They hire local Colombian designers to design it. They work on it all year long. It's funded. So now they're implementing this into the other cities, which includes Bogota, and then they sell it to other countries so that you can find, the same kind of art make its way to Japan. That's one of the recent projects. So that's been quite wonderful to watch that just grow beyond Medellin. Yeah.
I think we have a question from the back.
So when I do my sales pitch to like mayors and stuff like that, I kind of explain that there's 3 nights in a night. And it used to be on and off lighting, but now you can like variate it. There's new technologies and all that can enable you to do that. And so there's 3 nights in a night. There's the active night when people get out of school and get out of work, and they're in their cars, and then they do their shopping before they go eat. And then they go to the restaurant. So that's the active night where, you can really put the light full blast because, security reasons and all that. People need to see where they're going. you know, the sun just went down, so the eyes haven't adjusted yet and all that. So there you can put the light on. And then there's the urban night, which is more like a night where people have finished eating and people are starting to have a drink and all that. You know, it's like more like around 10. And where you can kind of put the lights a bit more like down and like calm it down a bit, because, you know, people are a bit more calm and things are chill and there's less people. And then there's actually the real night where you want animals to like sleep and to like, so where you can actually kind of turn off the unnecessary lights basically. And this is what we're doing with this project here. Actually, at midnight there's a timer. At midnight it turns off, and at 6 in the morning it turns on again. So what else? I don't know if I answered the question or not really, but yeah. Yeah.
I'd be happy to. So I am at University of Illinois, as has been said, and the Great Cities Institute represents UIC's commitment as an engaged university. So we deal with the question of what it is that makes cities great, but part of that also involves using research and our planning processes and our bringing people together to really think about what are some of the challenges that we then, what are some of the solutions to the challenges that we need to address. So we cover a range of topics, everything from things like youth joblessness and its impact on violence, for example. We do economic development and corridor plans for economic revitalization. And that work has a lot of design elements to it. But we always incorporate a community engagement process into that. So we're involving people in a process of thinking through what is their vision, what would they like to see for their neighborhoods, what they like to see in that given corridor, for example, and what are some of the design elements, what are some of the economic development strategies, what are some of the community development strategies that will help them to attain their vision. One of the things we also do, we host international visitors, and we do wonderful things like collaborate with you all on the Cité project. So thank you for asking. Which may be a good segue for me, if there are no other questions, to make some concluding comments. Yes? Please.
I have a question for Philippe.
Please.
Kind of like following what you said, I'm wondering how you kind of gauge the impact that your projects have on people. Do you have like a process of interviewing people or engaging with them to understand how they react to what you're doing? Mm-hmm. And maybe we can do that afterwards when we go out, and you can show us how you engage with the users, because that's also something that I think in a lot of our practices we have in common, is this engagement with the people. So I'm wondering how you do that with your lighting projects.
I might look like a tyrant when I say this, but lighting is really complicated to like. And what we want to do, our main goal is for people to be well and in a good in a good place with lighting, and we want people to be proud of the lighting in their district and things like that. We want well-being to happen. The issue is that if we ask people what they want in lighting, often they're gonna ask for, we want it to be super bright and we want a lot of lighting and all that, and that's not necessarily the way to light things up. Sometimes the lower the light is, the better it is in a way, because you're going to create something more warm and something more human and something more better for the nature, also all these things. And so it's more of an educational process. I think it's in both ways. Like we are the ones who tell people, okay, this is how light works, and then we can hear them what they have to say about what kind of But light is there's a bit of an education I think to do, because it's something that's pretty new. It's not like an old practice. It's a new practice. It's like 30 years old now, So I think it demands some education. Yeah.
Philippe, I wanted to ask a question. I'm curious about your journey. So, architecture to where you are now. How did this road lead you here? Nobody asked me to ask that. I was just curious.
Life. No. To tell you the truth, actually, there is something actually. So I did architecture school. I worked at Venturi, and then I worked at this other firm, X2. And then I had my own firm, but that happened in 2008, and when all my projects were canceled, and so I started working for someone who was doing light, and I'm like, oh wait, this is so much more fun than architecture, and no, because architecture you have to deal with everything. You have to deal with all the problems all the time and all that, which is I loved architecture. It's great and all that, but it's you have to deal with so many problems, and so light is kind of, you arrive at a meeting right after a really boring meeting where everyone talked about economics or plumbing or and then you're talking about light, and everyone's like yay. Everyone's like, it's it's fun, yeah. So I guess I'm getting the best of both worlds, because I'm still in architecture, and I get to work with all these really cool architects and around the world, and it's fun to see all these different types of architecture practices, and it's I'm very lucky. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the press does that really well. Yeah, no, really. We had projects where and then politicians do that really well also. Like when there's a new mayor that wants to, or someone that wants to become a mayor, and then they talk to the press and they say the lighting thing is horrible because you can't see anything, or and it's the problem is that it's you see if the users are happy, if there's people there at night, basically, if people hang out where you did your light work at night, and if they're there, then you just see by the usage of the district and the area, and then you also see it through Instagram also, in a way, if people are gonna Instagram what you did, and because they're that's kind of, we don't have direct access, but it's more like these just observing, and yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, of course, for sure. Yeah, and even politically wise, I was talking about the new mayors that we know how to be careful with that kind of thing now, and not go, yeah. There. I don't want to go further.
Well, I know that we're all anxious to see the installation and to enjoy some of the wonderful wine and cheese, so I'll keep my comments brief. The first time, I used to be in a school of architecture and planning, and one of my colleagues there, and a dear friend, we both share a love of Chicago Bulls, but he ran the arts lab as an architecture professor. So, okay, let me sort of wrap my brain around this, right? And one of the things is my first exposure to some of the issues around lighting. He would do these really cool installations on our brand new building, George Pearl Hall, in New Mexico. So, of course, I called him up and said, Tim, I'm going to be attending this event this evening. What do you think about lighting, right, in urban space and so on? And so as we talked about it and listening to you all tonight, you know, one of the things that I think is really clear and really important is how new technologies have given us these possibilities for transforming our experiences of urban space. And I think that's something that, you know, Juan Gabriel, I was really struck when you talked about what it means now to transform and push us up, in your case, right, to looking up, right, at a time when we've all been looking down so much, right, and looking away. So just that transformation through lighting to get us to think differently about our relationship to space. I also teach an Introduction to Urban Studies class, and so I did a module on Kevin Lynch and the whole idea of relationship of the human aspect and the human experience in relation to space, and how design makes a difference in that, right? So we're adding this whole new element about what difference does lighting make in that experience. And, you know, to uplift these young people, right, to sort of change how you walk through a space, right, I think is really elevating even what Kevin Lynch had emphasized so much to us about that experience in relation to the human element and design. And so I think it's important as we move forward in using this technology that we continue to think about the human element. What is that experience? Because if you can, through lighting, change the experience, I think we need to be cognizant about what that experience is that we want to change it to, right? And so, you know, any kind of content always has some kind of meaning, whether it's implicit or explicit. So I think it becomes very important to think about what is the explicit meaning that we're trying to convey or trying to create, right? So it's an important opportunity, it's an important time to think about creating kind of these positive experiences that get us to look up, right, and to be elevated, right, as we move through space, and you know, and to create a kind of positive, you know, positive vibe for us. So I think it's very exciting. The other thing that is very exciting to me is that it transforms also accessibility to this art form, and you know, the technology does. So it doesn't have to be high art, right? And so part of the question then becomes, even how might these young people in schools, in our neighborhoods, how might they use lighting and the projection of light to even transform the spaces that they're in their neighborhoods, especially if their neighborhoods are ones that need to be transformed, right? And how does that elevate even what they might possibly envision about what's possible for them? And so it's very exciting, right? And even something like you know, in South Korea, where they have the aquarium, right, on the, you know, that transforms, you know, you're walking through that space, it can really begin to get you to think about what are other possibilities, what are other experiences. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things also that you all have said. I loved, for example, you know, early on when you talked about the concept of sculpturing. Hold on, let me find it here.
Darkness.
Sculpturing darkness. Yes, exactly, sculpturing the darkness. I thought that was very cool, right? And so this notion of darkness, but how do we sculpture it, right? So I picked up on that and thought that was very interesting. And then you also talked about revealing that which you want to reveal. So again, back to this consciousness about thinking about, you know, what is it we want to reveal, in our spaces, and thinking about that. And so you can totally change space, and it's just the possibilities really, I think, are endless. And I also like the fact that you pointed out that if light is not thought about in a conscious way, and if it's not thought about even as sculpturing darkness, in fact, you can end up creating chaos, which is you talked about, right? So I think it really becomes important to decide not just any light, right, however light you want to do it, but to really be conscious in that sculpturing process so that you're not actually creating chaos. And then you also talked about this concept of creating a magical feel. So I thought that was really cool too. And Odila, I really love too that, you know, your comment about how light can be used to make people more aware of public spaces, right? Which is very cool because we often, first of all, we need more public spaces, and there are certain parts of the city where we especially need more public spaces. But to the extent that we have them, we sometimes take them for granted. And so sometimes even something you've walked by before, it's like light can transform even your experience of that. So I thought that was a really cool concept. I'm having a hard time reading my own handwriting here. And you talked about sort of this idea of creating alternative worlds, which I thought was also very cool. And then I think we were all really moved by the way in which Juan Gabriel talked about sort of this period in Colombia and how important and what the darkness had become, and then how art in that sense could really, and the use of light in that art could really transform and help bring people out of darkness. So I think we were all really moved by that. And then I think this concept, which is embedded in the event, of illumination, right? And so what is it that light is illuminating for us, and how we use that? And then I think, kind of concluding, this idea that Juan Gabriel talked about, how illumination has such a powerful and beautiful role in our cities in creating the built environment. And so with the technological possibilities, including the LED, right? Because I had some of the same concerns about, are we using too much energy on this thing? And we might even want to explore, is there some connection between day and light, and using solar even to possibly use some of that source of energy to even minimize it even further? I think that's one thing. What are some theatrical possibilities even? How can we even expand the images that get put up there and so on? There's just so much endless possibility. And so I think this is very exciting. Congratulations to you. And big shout outs to you all for the tremendous work you all are both doing. And then what a wonderful opportunity for us. We appreciate our alliance with the Alliance. And so now, with a couple of announcements, we want to thank this wonderful panel, and thanks to the Alliance Française and to the Great Cities Institute for the organization, and especially to Clayco for their generous support. Our next City Cité conference will be November 11th with the French architect Thomas Koldefy. Sorry, Koldefy. I little by little, I'm picking up a little bit more French here and there, right? And so with that, I will give the floor back to Ami, who will give us instructions on where we go next.
Thank you. Okay, we've done a lot of thank yous, but I'll just say a few more names. Joe Clapier, Chuck McMillan, the two Chris, Ed, Nedir, Claire, Fabienne, our videographer Jordan, our drone shooter Larissa, who did that last night when it was not raining. Just to let you know what we do next, we will go next door after we see one last thing, because it's very hard to inaugurate a piece of art that's not in your building, so we have a very special view for you, and we'll show you that. After, I want you to know that you can be in small group. We will lead you safely across the street and up the parking lot, 3 floors across the street, if you want a photo opportunity of Les Lumières Urban Buffet, which will be on our roof for 3 months. Merci. On ferme les lumières. We'll put the light down, and then we'll see you next door. Bear with us 2 more minutes.